Welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and every episode we get into what has made our guests vulnerable and how they've learned how to own their awkward in order to live their best life. Stay tuned so you can hear every awkward moment in today's show. Hey friends, welcome back to another Own Your Awkward episode. I am super excited today because we have someone from our local community here in Tacoma who is doing art in a different way. Julia Josephine, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm so glad to be chatting with you.
Thank you, likewise.
So, Julia, we are going to go talk about all sorts of awesome stuff, especially some awkward stuff. But first, I just like to start out knowing what's the most positive thing you see going on in the world right now?
Well, I'm an artist and I do a lot of collaborations working with other artists. And something that is very positive that I love seeing is other artists and other people getting inspired by each other. We're all on this planet together, and everyone tries to be their own person, but when you surround yourself with people that you like or aspire to be like, it's cool to, rub off on each other and be inspired by each other. That's something that I have been enjoying seeing in people.
I love that. I'm very extroverted myself, so I really get that charge from other people and from being around people. And I don't even think you need to be extroverted to see that, because you could be introverted, and I imagine you get a lot of inspiration from what you're seeing in the community and doing. So I love that. It's beautiful. And that's so fitting for what I see you as a person, because I see you out. You mentioned the word collaboration, and that is when I think when someone thinks of Julia Josephine, anyone in the area who's met you, known you, see you do anything, it's all about collaboration.
Yeah, to me, it makes sense, and it's kind of a no-brainer for me, but I'm also more extroverted, especially for an artist. I am more extroverted. And I think that helps a lot in what I do, live paintings and organizing events. But everything I do seems to be better just all around when more people get involved and we all just kind of play off of each other's creativity.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've been at some of your events, and they are so fun, and it's experiencing art in a different way. Since you mentioned collaboration, how would you describe to someone who hasn't been to one of your events what one of your live art events would be like?
Ooh, okay. So they're usually themed in some way, shape, or form. And it's usually featuring multiple artists of different mediums. So I got to have some sort of musicians going on, got to have some sort of live painting. If we could do a sculpture thing or digital art, or throw in other types of art all around the same theme, or to do different concepts. A winning combination of concepts together and different styles, mediums of artists.
And what types of places are you having these events in?
So it's usually a local business, a business that has supported other artists or just supports the arts in general. So I try to work with businesses that have a record of supporting the local arts community. And it's anywhere from coffee shops and cafes to bars, or to any spaces with an extra room or event space type thing.
Yeah, it's neat because what I like about that, and I was a little leading when I asked that question, because it is that you're not having to go show up at necessarily an art gallery. We're experiencing the art in the places the community is gathering, and it's bringing it right to people, and it's fun.
Yeah, and I like Instagram a lot, and that's my favorite social media. So it's also the thing of, if I can tag people, if I can tag more people, and shine more light on other people who are doing other art things in the community, that's one of the goals for sure.
Definitely. And your Instagram is fun. whenever I see your posts come up in your stories, they're both fun, inspiring, they thought provoking. There's a link in the description for all of Julia's social media, but what's your Instagram handle just so that people who are
Yeah,
listening?
it's Julia Josephine 920.
Perfect. So click that little follow button, listening to the episode. But if you got multiple devices, switch over there and follow before you forget, or make a note so you do it right after the show. Well, Julia, everybody comes on here because the world wants to know about this awkwardness that we have going on, and especially yours. So, what is your awkward you've had to own to live your best life?
Um, you know, it's living authentically instead of trying to like, oh, I see how these people are doing this, or oh, I see how they're doing that. Just really focusing on myself, sort of uninfluenced by other people, like who is Julia, and then presenting that instead of like, oh, I want to be like this person, I really like their work and they've been doing it for a long time, and trying to be them. I try to internally think, no, what is Julia thinking? Who does Julia want to be like? Who is Julia? And then base everything off of that. I am a very impressionable person, so I try to be careful who I surround myself by, because I want to be around people that I want to be like, but still be true to myself. So it's something ongoing, I feel, but the more I'm like, oh yeah, whatever lights the fire in me, I try to do that instead of trying to be other things or stuff like that. And that's helped me out a lot. Just really pausing, taking a moment and thinking, okay, nope, don't try to be someone else. And just being true to myself. Yeah.
I think that's so important and critical. Eh, Now, when you were saying that and talking about that, I'm wondering, was there a time where you weren't able to ask yourself, what does Julia want and who's Julia, where you were living for everybody else?
Yeah, so I moved to Tacoma, where I live now, about 3 years ago. And before I moved here, I mean, everyone does it. Oh, I was young, I was still figuring it out, and I think I still am figuring it out. But I definitely can look back and see a difference of like, oh, I was just trying to do that, or oh, I saw someone else doing this, so I was trying to do that. It's very clear to me
Mhm.
looking back. And then when I moved here, I still did that a little bit, but now since I've really gone full-time artist and doing what I want, and like, oh, it would be a cool idea, and then following through with that, um, I've noticed the difference, and I have more of that fire, more of that passion behind it because it is truly what I want to do. So yeah, I would say it's been a slow transition into that.
Mhm.
But yeah, for a couple of years at least.
Yeah, was there a moment where you noticed that there was a pivoting point where you knew you needed to do something different?
Yeah, I hate to bring it back to social media, but when I first moved here, I was doing a clothing business, and yes, it was creative, and yes, it was um, fulfilling artistically. But then I put that on the back burner, just because of life events and life changes, and I did art and painting and live painting full time. And the number of followers I had on Instagram just not skyrocketed, but tripled within the next 3 months when I started doing that instead
Wow.
of the clothing. And I was like, whoa, okay, if that's not a sign, you know.
Right.
And I know Instagram and social media is just Instagram and social media, but just seeing the numbers like that, I was like, whoa, all
Mhm.
right, I'm just gonna keep riding this, keep
Well,
doing it.
and as much as they need to be kept in their place, they are a reflection of what the world is looking for and what they're finding value in what you're bringing to the world. And
I absolutely agree. And the followers that I was gaining, it's real people in the local community. It's not, I mean, yes, some of it is from hashtags, but it's not from people on the other side of the world. It's from people in Tacoma who would actually come out to my events. So it's very reassuring of like, okay, no, this is, you know,
Yeah.
people are interested in this.
Right. And that's the thing is where, I have a love-hate relationship with social media because sometimes I think, oh, I didn't get a lot of attention on this post. I must not be doing it right, or it must be rejected or bad content. But then on the flip side, I have to remind myself, well, there's an algorithm that just might not have been in front of everybody, so they didn't even have a chance to reject it. So it's not necessarily that this is bad, it's just didn't find its way to the right place. But when you are getting the good feedback, you do know that people are liking and appreciating it and that it is valuable.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So how is, you mentioned like I can just tell you're radiating and beaming when you talk about doing what you love. How has this changed your life?
It's much more freeing, I feel, because I don't I don't feel like I need to compare myself to other businesses or anything because I'm just doing what I want to do. And it's very reassuring when I come up with a crazy idea, that I can just do it and there's people to support me in doing it. So it's very freeing. Like everything I do, it's the whole cliche of do what you want, do your passion. You'll never work a day in your life and you'll work every day of your life. And I'm very, very much living that. Everything I do is related to art in some way, shape, or form. And it's very freeing. I can say yes or no to anything.
Right.
um, yeah. And I can lift others up along the way too. Um, we touched on this in the beginning, but I am more extroverted for an artist. And there are quite a few artists in the local community that are introverts. So it's beautiful to me to be able to do collaborations with others who are not extroverted and be like, no, look at this cool artist, like not
Mhm.
just me, but look at them, like, and bring
Right.
each other up. It's really cool. I love it.
Yeah, I love that because you can bring your personality to give light to other people whose skill set might not be out and wanting to be out in front of people, but you can still bring that attention to them.
Exactly. Yes.
Now, you mentioned this being authentic and how that was that awkward you had to own. A lot of times when we transition in life or find something that we want to pursue or do a little differently, that can shift things for other people because their view of what they thought was authentic for you is not what was real. Did you find that there were relationships or people that adjusted in or out of your life when that happened?
Um, I don't think completely in or out. There were some people that I was closer with that got a little less close, but not like completely in or out, nothing too drastic. I'm grateful that some people or a lot of people were like, oh, wow, cool. Like you just look so happy now. And that's always a good thing to hear from others because I feel it. And yeah, it's good to hear from others though.
Well, and where we're at, we both live in the same city, we're in the same community, a lot of the same people in our lives. It's a very supportive uh, town, especially for artists. There's so much art here. So it makes it an easy place in a lot of ways to pursue that. Not that it's easy, but I mean it's a good place to be if you're in that community, I think.
I totally agree. Yeah, once you start, well, I found when I started putting myself out there, um, people do want to support and they genuinely in this community, they do want to support artists. And it's figuring out a way to communicate how people who are non-artists can support artists. And that is important. It's more, there's so many different ways to be an artist in this day and age and in this area. And just in general, you can make a living as an artist in so many ways. And it's communicating to non-artists or people who want to support you as an artist how they can best do that. And that's important because yes, this community does want to support the arts for sure.
How would you define or describe someone as being an artist? Like, what boxes do they need to check?
Ooh. I think that's just for each individual to decide on their own. you can do things for hobbies. You can do it as a career or a side hustle. You can do it however you want. But I think that's something that each individual chooses for themselves if they're an artist or not. And even if you don't want to put a label on it, you don't have to.
Sure.
If you want
Yeah.
to be creative with or without being an artist, all right, be creative. Yeah, that's more how I view it.
I guess the reason I asked that question is it was funny for me. I hadn't considered myself an artist because for me, art was certain forms. And I took part in one of the art events around here where they wanted me there as an author. And they're like, well, writing, it's an art. And I thought, I hadn't thought of that until that moment. It was like, no, this is what I do. And and that's, I guess, the thing is that there are so many different ways you can present whatever it is that is art to you. I mean, you look at a baker and the things that they produce, there's an art to doing that or to creating anything. So
Totally. There's so many ways to be an artist and to be successful as an artist that there's no one way to do it. And yeah, whether you call yourself an artist or not, yeah, there's so many different routes.
I'm curious, since you've gone down this journey, you mentioned you had the clothing and then you moved into the Instagram. You started sharing your art on there. Uh, at what point did you start doing these live events?
Let's see. I think it was a little less than a year ago. I started doing live events because I really am a people person and I like making connections and I enjoy going to networking meetings and meeting other business owners and collaborating. So it all kind of made sense in one way or another. I was moving and a little less than a year ago, I was moving and I needed to figure some things out. And I was like, well, what else can I do? I can paint. I know business owners in the area and I can bring a few artists with me and we can make an event and we can see what happens. So I started doing that and got some good positive feedback and just kind of kept going from there and then kept pushing it. Okay, well, what if, we raffled the painting or auctioned a painting? And then what if we didn't just paint on canvases, we painted on the backs of people's shirts? And then, well, what if we added music and other instruments? And what if we painted the instruments? And then we just kept going and going and
Mhm. Yeah, and that's
I'll
kind of
continue
fun.
to go.
Yeah, and every event, I'm sure a new idea can potentially pop up. We're like, oh, you know what, we could do this. And I've seen at some of the events where, someone shows up and all of a sudden you're painting their music case. And that wasn't planned. That was just, you know, it's fun to see because there's no really rules around what it has to fit into.
Yes, yeah, and it's great because it always feels like a welcoming space for artists and for non-artists. Um, I paint a lot of bananas. It's part of, I guess you could say my brand at this point, but I do paint a lot of bananas, and some people know me for that. So it's fun to see at events. I'll see people that I know drawing bananas because I'm drawing a banana as well, and then to see other non-artists come in and see, oh wow, we can be creative too. And it's just like a spiral of just everyone is welcome and it's a artistic event all around.
Yeah.
Whether you came to participate or not, it's still a good creative environment.
Now, as you moved into, really focusing more on the art side, is there a favorite moment that you've had so far, whether it's at an event or just in your own art?
Ooh, favorite moment. There's been, yeah, I'm trying to think of.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking. No, so I organize different sessions, art sessions, and I don't necessarily enjoy teaching classes as much. So I like providing supplies and creating a creative environment for people.
Mhm.
And there's been a few sessions where people would come and do some art, and it just was really healing for them. And knowing that I'm part of their healing and like kind of art therapy, though I'm not a therapist,
Right.
but along those lines, and people really going through some things and they just needed to be creative. So
Yeah.
to come to a class and to be able to provide the space where they felt comfortable to just talk things out and work through some things, that's yeah, that's been really cool. That's to me one of like the ultimate ways to connect with people through art is yeah, people going through divorces and or just dealing with kids and life, and to
Hmm.
be able to have art as like the getaway, like I need to get away from my life a little bit, let me go take this art class or like do this art thing. That's
Hmm.
really cool. Yeah,
Being able to facilitate that space that puts people in a position to do something where they have to slow down and they have to take their mind out of their problems, that's a beautiful thing.
yeah, yes. And it I see how I'm beginning to see how needed it is for a lot of people. For me, my whole life, arts has always been a part of it in some way. I did a lot of dance and theater, but I've always been drawing and painting, and art has always been accessible for me. And my family, my mom has been an artist and is an artist. So to see some people that are like, oh no, like I don't even have art stuff, and I'm like, oh, here's some paper, like I got you, you know, like
Yeah.
just kind of realizing that not everyone has always done art, and to be able to be like, oh wait, I got you, here we go, like let's just do some art. To give people that is really cool. I enjoy that a lot.
Have you had people that you have seen who have started either coming to one of your events or that just known as a friend started with stick figures or just scribbling a little bit because they weren't planning to be an artist and now they're regularly creating something?
Definitely, yes. And I do a weekly art session, like a artist meetup. And for some of the people that come to that, it's like there are 3 hours a week that they can allocate to art. And because, you know, life is just crazy. So it's nice. Yeah. And I can definitely see the progression and in the people that come. Some people come every couple of weeks or stuff like that. And yeah, yes, definitely. And people being able to try different things too. So if some people are very used to oil paints and they've been doing oil painting for years and years, and then they come to one of the sessions like, oh wait, I haven't done watercolor in a while, so to see them break out the watercolors and start being creative in a different way while still using the skills that they have.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've seen that too. That's it's always good to see.
Yeah, it's fun to see other people, uh, whether it's coming out of their shell or developing their talent or whatever it is. It's just fun to see them find that shine, that thing that makes them shine.
And in myself too. I get bored very quickly, so I think like
Ah,
this is how I
there it
know
is.
this is what I'm supposed to be doing, because I can go to all of my own events and stuff like that and art sessions and be like, oh wait, I forgot about that, can I try that again?
Mhm.
And it keeps my mind going, which keeps the creative juices flowing. And I don't know if I'm ever gonna get art black, you know?
Right.
Like I love feeding off of other people's creativity and vice versa, you know.
I've heard that said one time that whatever that thing is that you can do even when you're tired, you can do the mundane tasks of whatever it is you're working on, but while you're, pulling an all-nighter because it needs to be done, if you can still do it and not be grumpy about it, that you're really doing what you love. And I think you phrase that a little differently, thinking about not getting bored or getting distracted and moving on to the next thing. And I think that's so much the same idea that if you're not going to get bored with something, then you're doing what you love.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Were you so you obviously must have had times before where you were feeling that boredom or that urge to move on.
Yes, yeah. And it's for me, it's even as simple as changing locations or not like physically getting up and moving, but like instead of going to the same place to work on this every day, I'm gonna go to a different place. Or
Mhm.
okay, I've been doing a lot of stuff in Tacoma. Let me go to Olympia for a couple things. Let me go to Seattle or SeaTac or something and work on some things. And to just reach different people. So it for me, it can be changing anything at whatever art I'm doing. Okay, let me try a different type of thing, or just go to a different park to draw, or try a different art session themed around something different. Changing anything
Sure.
helps me along for sure. Working with new people always gives me a good fresh energy and
Well, and
create.
each time you expand into a different community or go to a different location, you're doing just that. You're able to meet new people and bring not only your spirit and joy to those artists, but also to learn from and experience their thing, their what they have to bring, and that's from a whole different perspective. So you can both give and take, and just continue to grow.
Yes, exactly. I love working with people that are not similar to me. So age differences, older, younger, just different backgrounds, people that are different than me. I like learning. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had you mentioned age ranges. Do you know what the oldest and youngest people are about that you've worked with are?
Yeah. The oldest is probably, I think she's 90 or 91 or 92,
Wow.
around that age. Yeah. And then the youngest, probably about two.
Okay. That
Yeah.
that is a very big range, and pretty much I'm as pretty close to as far as you can go as far as working with artists.
Yeah. And it's, I think back to when I was teaching dance more regularly, dance classes. I had a group of senior tap ladies, and
Mm.
that was, they've taught me so much. And yeah, I always love dancing with them, and
Yeah.
for
Uh,
sure.
the interesting thing is with people who have gone further down any road that we've gone, there's just so many stories, so much to learn, and we just have to sit back and listen and experience it.
Yes, yes, listening for sure.
Now, I am curious, is it harder to work with a 2-year-old or a 91-year-old?
It's very different on what, case by case. So
Fair.
to how, where is the dementia at, or where is, each one is very individual
Sure.
um in what they got going. But it's a different mindset that I just bring with each one. I'm like, okay, if we got a younger group of kiddos, all right, let's keep things moving, keep it fast paced. If it's a little bit older, then just kind of hang out, take your time, sort of thing. But play it by ear in all instances. Just kind of, all right, be present. What are we working on? What are we doing? All right, that's what we're doing.
I love that you mention the choosing what mindset you bring into the situation based on what you're stepping into. I, I think that is something that we sometimes forget. We step into every situation expecting it to be cookie cutter, the same thing, and that just creates issues and disappointment when something might not go the way we anticipate because we don't step in with the idea that this is going to be a different group of people with a different experience or a different background, even if age isn't the issue, if it's just different skill set, different understanding, different levels of exposure to the subject.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, you can prepare for all the instances and stuff, but I've found just have a few things up your sleeve, a couple backup things, and that's as much to prepare as you need. Because then when you walk in, it's like, okay, now I can understand where we're at, and
Yeah.
then see what you need to pull out of your sleeve and
Right.
work on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is one of the important tricks, because you can have the best plans in place. You could have said, "Oh, these are 2-year-olds. I'm going to have X, Y, and Z, and this is what we're going to do." But as soon as the paint jar gets tipped over or whatever, you need to have something that you're going to move to. It's like, okay, well, we're going to pivot over to here and get distracted and do this thing, and then maybe while that gets cleaned up, or maybe all the paint's gone now, whatever it is.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
So Julia, what's the best way for people to support you and give you some love with everything you have going on and find you when you have events coming up?
Yeah, to find my Instagram is the best way. I'm the most active on there and I post everything on there. So that is Julia Josephine 920. And it's the same on Facebook as well. I am a little slower to respond there, but Julia Josephine 920, no spaces. You'll be able to see all my events and classes and sessions. And you can, if you're not local in Tacoma, Washington, I can do stuff through Zoom as well. So if that's something you want to learn from me or pick my brain about, you can always get a hold of me through Instagram for sure. And then we can figure out from there. Yeah.
And I think it's so important that you call out where you're the most active, because sometimes people go to something trying to find someone, and it's like, oh no, that's not my thing. My thing is over here. So yeah.
Yes, you can email me, but that one's gonna take the longest.
Right. Yes, I'm the same way. I don't, yeah, and I have to say, watching your posts, your stories, you do the best job with stories from anyone I know, where all day throughout the day there's a snippet of Julia's mindset, her day, as well as what's coming up. I didn't see what today is brought to us by, but you usually have it. Today is brought to you by something. What is today?
Yeah, today's brought to you by is keeping up with everything.
There you go.
Yes.
I tell you,
Yes.
this week that's an important one for me, because I feel like I just had a couple days this week where I knew going to bed that the next day was going to be running all day, just from the amount of things I was committed to, and so that's very timely.
Yes. But yeah, thank you. I do enjoy keeping up on my stories. And the brought to you by is just a nice daily check-in for myself. And I think it's important to share. It's kind of like a form of journaling for me.
Mm.
So yeah, and a lot of people find value in it. So I'm glad I can share that with people.
And it's comes back to that. What does Julia want? What does Julia also need? And so, by doing what you're doing for yourself in an authentic way, you can do it for you, and that's great, but other people are loving it and finding value.
Yes. So to me, it's like, well, why not share? It's good for everyone, I feel.
Yeah, and I feel like once we find something that works, the more we share it, the more it can help other people. And sometimes people go, "Oh, I like that. I'm gonna follow you and watch yours every day." And other people might look at it and say, "Oh, that's a great idea. I'm gonna do something similar myself." And both are helping people in different ways.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So Julia, before we go, I just have to know, what would be that advice you'd give people on how they can own their awkward?
I want to tell everyone to do more mindfulness of yourself. That is what helped me the most. Is that mindfulness of like, okay, where am I at? And what do I want? And I don't think you need to have the most specific goals in mind when you do it, but just have a general idea of yourself and what you really want out of what you're doing.
Okay, I love that. That is, mindfulness is something I never used to understand. And it definitely makes a difference once you're aware.
I agree. Yes.
That's beautiful. Well, Julia, thank you for joining me today, for sharing your story, and for all the awesome things you're doing out there in our community. It's a vital part of what makes this such a great place to be, because of events that are going on like what you put on, and people like you that put those events together, because the events are all about the community and the people. Otherwise, we'd just be staring at walls in a room going like, oh, there's stuff here. But I love it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And of course, thanks for being vulnerable and opening up today about your awkward, because that's not always easy to do. And it makes a difference when we can share.
I agree. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Julia. And of course, everybody go give her some love on Instagram, especially whenever you're in town. Or if you're not in town, fly into town to come to one of her events. It's worth it. It's a lot of fun. Stay for the weekend. Check out some art. And of course, own your awkward. Thank you so much for listening in for today's show. Be sure to visit awkwardcareer.com to continue your journey. And of course, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so they can find their awkward side and learn how to own it.